Hello, Director Apprentices. Congratulations on your learning journey. I am Brooke Gill, the Director of Family Engagement, Policy and Practice for the Pritchard Committee, and I've been working hand in hand with the friends at Governor's Office of Early Childhood to create a really neat family engagement package for you. So I'm not sure if you've already started with the introduction modules and some of the activities, or if you're watching this first to see what you're in for. But we are just going to walk through in a couple minutes what the instructions are. Probably could have just posted them and you could have figured it out on your own. But if you're like me, you like some feeling of an in-person coach or trainer. So this is me being as in-person as I can be with this online series. So if you're on the website, which you have to be in order to find this video, you will go to your Directus Apprenticeship one-pager, and it looks like this. At the top are all of the ECAD categories that you're responsible for in your apprenticeship. If you're a mentor, this is kind of for you too. So these are what the apprentice is responsible for on the left here, and the hours required for each one. The middle column are the task suggestions, right? So you don't have to do what we've laid out for you to accomplish that section of your course requirements, but we feel like it's a really great way to learn the information and meet your hours. So it's the task suggestion and then the evidence of completion for the apprentice. This is what you need to get together in your portfolio, and for the mentor, this is what you're looking for. So I'm just going to walk us through it really quick. For the first sections, you kind of scroll down here and you find your guide. So you can just walk through this and kind of check mark off as you go to make sure you've got everything you need. And it's broken into 5 total assignments for up to 13 hours. So at a minimum, it's 9 hours to do all of the activities that we have here. If you really take that fifth assignment to the next level, you can get up to 5 hours for just that 5th assignment. And that's going to be at the discretion of the mentor and the apprentice working together to understand what all you want to take on in your family engagement action planning. So the first assignment is to complete the 4 partnerships pulse check and read the Kentucky Family and Early Education Program Partnership Guide. So you'll find that on the main page of the early education workbooks and where you found this training module link. So it's all there for you. The first tool that you'll see on that page is this partnership grid. So I'll pull it up for you here. We are seeing that, the 4 versions of family partnership. So your first assignment is to fill this out. And that just gets you started on thinking about family engagement and where your center already scores. The next piece is to read the Family and Early Education Program Partnership Guide. And to ensure that you read it, your mentor has 6 reflection questions that go along with that reading. Which section was the most helpful to you? One thing you learned from the why section, one thing you learned from the how section. So just a little bit of a conversation piece for you and the mentor. That's worth 1 hour. Your second assignment is to do the awesome family engagement modules that Lynn Baker and I have put together for you guys. The first one is Family Engagement Beyond the Newsletter. That's a 1 hour module. And then you've got the 3 self-assessment modules, which are really just a breakdown of the 3 hours, but it's one module covering the 5 objectives. So you need to do both of those module components, and you'll get a proof of completion certificate for each one. And there's journal reflection questions that you'll do along with each of those modules. So we encourage mentors to not only check for the certificate, make sure they completed it, but have the apprentice show you what they wrote down in their reflection journal as they went through the modules to just kind of reflect together and see what all they learned. Assignment 3, so that's for 4 hours total, so those modules, so you're up to 5 hours. Assignment 3, complete the family engagement self-assessment. That's required for anyone that wanted to go on to do the center director training. But for the apprentices, we also want you to create a team to take that self-assessment. So you'll need to complete it yourself. You'll also need to recruit 2 other teachers and 2 family members to complete the self-assessment as well. And then you'll compare the results of those self-assessments and have mentorship reflections with these 4 questions. How did you create your team? What did you learn about recruiting participants during this process? And how did the scores compare to one another? And finally, just what conclusions did you draw through this experience? So with assignment 3 and 5, the process is just as important, if not more important, than the product of what you're creating and learning. So the experience of putting a team together is a journey in and of itself. It's hard to recruit 2 teachers and 2 families sometimes. So just how did you go about it? What did you learn in that process? Was it harder or easier than you thought it would be? And then how did the scores compare to each other, kind of being the product? But really think about the process of recruiting and organizing that team as a big piece of assignment 3. So that's 2 hours to complete because it does take some time to recruit and collect those assessments. Assignment 4 is your next training module. It's also excellent, if I do say so myself. This is directed towards center directors. So it takes that foundations that we learned beyond the newsletter, couples it with lens modules on the self-assessment. You're going to pull out that completed self-assessment by you and 4 others, and then look at what is your role as the building leader to make all of those things come to life. That's 1 hour. You'll have a completion certificate. And again, we encourage mentors to go through the reflection journal that the apprentice will need to complete as they do that training to have some further discussion. And your final 5th assignment is to bring all of that learning full circle and into action. Now, might feel a little bit like you're going to have to maybe rewind it and hear it again or read this paragraph a couple times, but you're smushing a few things together in this final assignment. You're going to look at not only your family engagement team that have probably been the ones to take the self-assessment. So that's probably your 2 families and the 2 staff and yourself. That's the team. There may have been a lot of time that's passed between when you do your self-assessment and when you get to assignment 5. For that reason, we're saying you need to make a team. You may already have one, or you may have to start from scratch, or you've done this pretty close together, but you learned through assignment 3 that it wasn't the right team. And so this is your opportunity to create a new team or to build on that existing team. So whatever your circumstance, it's going to be so unique to each person that we don't want to pigeonhole this assignment, but you need to create your family engagement action team. Either bring them back together or create a new one. And again, it's diverse representation, at least 5 of you. You serve as the building leader, 2 families, and 2 other staff. The next piece is you're going to look at new ideas based on this self-assessment. So to this point, you've only really looked at your self-assessment, gotten a score, compared each other's scores. During the center director training, you have an opportunity to think of a couple ideas, but you haven't actually tried any. So now we're going to take it one step further and identify something that you came up with, and maybe that assignment 4 or something you've come up with since you completed that assignment 4, and present it to this team, your small self-assessment team, and say, hey, I have this idea. The idea must have something to do with transitions. So that's the next piece, right? So an example for this might be, you want to pick the transition of kids going from pre-K to kindergarten, and how they feel comfortable making that transition, right? Their social emotional well-being and making that transition from pre-K to kindergarten. What is the family engagement strategy you're going to use to support that child's social emotional wellness during that transition to kindergarten? So it might look something like, I want to organize a get to know you day where we go to the local elementary school, families, kids, preschool teachers, and kindergarten teachers, and we're going to have a meet and greet. That's your idea. It's a great idea. And I've seen that done really well. So that's your idea. You take it back to your team and you say, hey, I have this idea. I think it would really support our relationship building objective. I think it would support communications. I think we could really help families be prepared for that meeting, which would support our advocacy objectives. So you can link it all into your self-assessment and what you learned during your self-assessment. You're also creating a family engagement activity that's highly interactive, relationship-based, positive, and it's focused on social emotional wellness and transitions. So you bring that idea to your team and they're like, I love it. It's great. It's brilliant. You're like, okay. So then your next step is to take it to the full staff. And so this is where apprentice can get a little clever and creative based on your unique situation. You may not be at a center yet. Your two people that were on your self-assessment team may be the full staff. And so you've already got the full staff at the table. So that's just where mentors and apprentice, you're just going to have to use some common sense and mold it to what makes sense for your programming. But let's say there's 40 teachers in the staff. So the next step would be to ask your center director, hey, at the next staff meeting, I want to present this idea to all of the staff members. So you'd come from staff members, be like, hey, we had 2 families and 2 teachers and myself took this family engagement self-assessment, trying to come up with some new ideas. And one of our ideas is to have this meet and greet night with kindergarten teachers and our families in the spring, so they can feel more comfortable making that transition to big school. And you get staff input. What do those staff think about it? They may rip it down. I hate that idea, but I love this idea. And a whole new idea might emerge. Remember, this is less about the product and more about the process. As a center director, you're learning how to come at a new idea in a collaborative process. It slows it down. It confuses it a little bit. And for me, that's hard. Sometimes I just want to like railroad through and get to the end, but it really makes for much richer programming, more staff buy-in, more high impact family engagement when you walk through these steps. So just be patient with the process, even if you're like, I have a brilliant idea, I don't need to ask anybody. So step it back, get your team together, see what bubbles up organically, present your idea, see what they think about it, go to the full staff, or maybe more parents. So the third step is really about take it to a bigger group so you can get some more input and ideas. Based on all of that information, get yourself going. And we recommend the SMART goal: specific, measurable, action-oriented. Is it realistic? When am I going to do it? And that E is for equity focused. How am I going to make sure that when I have this meet and greet night at the kindergarten school, my families that never show up for anything will be there? That's what the E means. How am I going to make sure that the families that don't typically come will come to this? So if you have different languages, you may need to have an interpreter there. If you have families that are intimidated by that environment, you may need to do a personal phone call to welcome them to this, to tell them you'll walk in with them. If you have grandparents or teen moms, or you know the families that don't regularly attend things, and you probably have an idea of why they don't attend. So your E is about getting your plan together and then thinking about what's my reach to each family, rather than blast it out to all and see who shows up. You're going to put all of that together. You don't actually have to implement it, but that's kind of where that 5 hours comes. Do you actually start moving on more of the planning? Do you pick the date for the open house? Have you put some of the action plans and steps? Or if it's something you can actually pull off beginning to end, go ahead and do it. Another great idea that would follow this pretty well is to have staff make calls to families about the upcoming transition. So you might think about the transition from infant toddler room to preschool room, and you have all of your infant toddler teachers make personal phone calls to their families to say, hey, moving into preschool in a month, that's a lot of changes. Like, what questions do you have? And maybe it's a Zoom call with the current infant toddler teacher, the parent, you as the center director, rising center director, and the new preschool teacher. And you all get on a call together and you create some really cool strength-based social emotional questions that can help that parent feel more comfortable and engaged. And that infant toddler teacher help that preschool teacher know, hey, he really is calmed down by this song. Or if you ever see him kind of running around like crazy, you might think that he's hyper, but that actually means he's nervous. And so I found that if I just walk up to him and give him a hug, it calms him right down. So just some of those social emotional things that are gold from the infant toddler teacher to the preschool teacher. And it's great for the family to be on the call and be like, oh yeah, that, we see that at home too. So maybe that's your plan. And you can actually host a few of those calls and then come to your mentor with reflections about how it went. So you've got some mentor reflection questions here. Again, what was this process like? I tried to put a team together. I hosted a meeting, nobody came. That's okay. It doesn't mean it has to work. It just means that you get comfortable with the process so that when you do the process again, you've kind of worked out the kinks and figure out what the challenges are. It's challenging to do collective work, which is what number 2 is all about. Was it harder or easier to work in collaboration with staff and families in a co-design process? So again, family engagement done well is doing with families, doing with staff, not to. It's much easier sometimes to cook up an idea on our own and say, here's what we're doing. But that's where you get pushback. People aren't participating, or people are grumpy about participating. Take time in the front end and your programming will be so much stronger and richer on the back end. What did you do well during this experience? What could you have done better? And what are some additions you can include to more adequately address resource and referrals and follow-up strategies for families? So if you did the phone call example, number 5 might be after we have that phone call, families are emailed, packets about challenging behaviors of 2 and 3-year-olds, or they're emailed some YouTube learning videos about how to handle, toddler tantrums. Whatever arose on the call, the next step is for either the upcoming teacher or the current teacher to follow up with some additional resources, referrals if necessary. Maybe that family shared on that call that they're really struggling with utility bills. So how are we following up with families once we're hearing those needs with community resources and resources that we know about through our networks? So congratulations, that will be your whole 9 hours, up to 13 hours of family engagement. I hope you're excited. Again, congratulations, and please reach out if you have any questions, brooke.gill@pritchardcommittee.org. Or you can call me 859-221-9552. You can also get on the Pritchard Committee website at any time. Contact us. There's like an admin email. It'll make its way to me. And then, of course, our friends at GOEC have my information too. So if you just want to call and say, I can't think of any ideas, I've got no ideas, I'm happy to let you know what I'm hearing other folks do or other ideas that I've heard about that I think are pretty cool. Thank you.